watched some videos recently that have said how a realist hero rebuilt the kingdom is pretty alright. And today I'm going to show you why that's not the case. Our story begins with our hero reading The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. Now, if you're anything like me, when you see the title, How a Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom, and then you see him reading the fantastic The Prince, you get a little hyped. Immediately after finishing his study session of Niccolo Machiavelli, the hero gets summoned to another world where he immediately gets told that he matters a whole lot, and that he's going to be sold off to pay the debt that this nation owes to another nation that's defending them against the Demon Lord. The hero quickly convinces the parties involved that this is a bad idea and he'll be more useful to them if given time to figure out an alternative solution. The king, the prime minister, and the hero spend 3 days looking over documentation of the current state of the kingdom. There's a really interesting philosophical question that goes something like this. What do you do when you are a king and you realize that you're incompetent? Now, we're going to assume a couple things. You have a family, you want to live, and you want your family to live. I really like this question because it shows you a deep insight into how the mind operates of the person who answers it. If they say something pretty simplistic, like, I would just abdicate to an advisor, it tells you they may not have a great understanding of history and or the real danger to giving up power and creating a power vacuum. If they say something like, I would just run away, they might not understand the nuances that come in between dialects, trying to blend in, trying to stay hidden, the intrigue that goes into hiding and disappearing with your family, and all of the potential ways that that could go wrong. Now, I'm not going to say those are the wrong answers, because depending on how you do them, you can definitely succeed. Now, this anime answers this question in a way that woefully disappoints me. It says, after 3 days of hanging out with a guy he just met, the king decides he's woefully incompetent and abdicates to him and secures his own safety by marrying his daughter to this guy. Now, there could be some deeper meaning behind the motivations of why someone would trust a complete stranger. Maybe the hero tale is a really big deal, or maybe the king truly values the life and safety of his people more than he does of himself and his family. However, the king is taking a huge risk and putting the potential safety of himself and his entire family in danger, as well as the safety of the entire realm, and there's no weight given to this decision other than mostly a surprise gag. After he is introduced as the new king, the hero is then shown sitting in an office doing a bunch of paperwork. And I actually really like this. I like that it shows there's a lot of administration that needs to go into a kingdom. However, I'll get to some of the details of what I don't like about the paperwork this guy is doing. Now, while working in the office, the hero is then confronted by the former princess of the realm, who immediately confronts the hero, acts very tsundere, and within 2 minutes apologizes to the hero for being upset that her birthright was given away without much thought or notice or planning or anything. And then when the hero says, yeah, there's no need for you to apologize, also you can cancel the engagement, she then gets upset that her engagement is getting canceled. She basically just speed ran from soon to dere. The hero then reveals that he has solved the immediate financial crisis and is selling off national treasures, but it's okay because he did a good job sorting them. I'm actually pretty okay with how they've come up with money from a historical standpoint. This has actually been a thing that kingdoms have done of when they need quick cash, melting down a bunch of stuff from the previous dynasty and just selling it so that they can pay their soldiers. So I'm actually pretty fine with this solution, and it actually shows some understanding of how nations have gotten out of financial crises in the past. The anime then makes a Yu-Gi-Oh reference during its wrap-up, and this is where some warning signs are very clear to me. At the beginning of the episode, They reference Niccolo Machiavelli, and then for the rest of the episode, didn't do a single thing or reference a single thing that's in The Prince, other than, I guess, hey, you should learn how to manage a realm before. No, that doesn't even work. The next major warning is that the characters seem incredibly standard. And the last warning, being probably the biggest for the show, is it solves its solutions without any foreshadowing of how it's going to solve them. A problem is introduced, and then 10 minutes later, we're told the hero has solved the problem with paperwork and diligence. Which, to be fair, is how a lot of problems in real life are solved. However, if the show is going to expect every time we see the hero doing paperwork that he is currently solving the issue that was stated in the previous scene, I mean, that's not exactly a compelling story. Moving on to the next episode, it starts off with showing us some fantasy creatures, the former princess showering, and more paperwork being done. All good things. After pulling an all-nighter doing paperwork, the hero decides he's going to show the princess the current biggest problem that the kingdom is facing. And I feel like this is where a lot of people misunderstand the show being good. Because here's what happens. They go to a cotton field, and he explains that due to the Demon Lord's invasion, a lot of the cotton fields that were in the north had to be abandoned, and the price of cotton skyrocketed. And thus, due to the amount of people that changed from growing food to growing cotton, caused this food shortage. Now, this seems to understand supply and demand, and I think a lot of people that watched this saw it and said, oh, that's pretty interesting. This show actually has some economic understanding. However, once the price of cotton plummeted, wouldn't all of the farmers just make the same decision they made before and go back to selling food? An analogy for this story is, let's say there is something called Horde VPN that lets you watch all your Horde movies that are not available in your country through a streaming app. Now, using the logic of the story, everyone that heard about Horde VPN and the clear benefits that it has joined Horde VPN. And because so many people joined the service got really shitty, and everyone would then just stop having the service, and the problem would be solved of the service being shitty. Although I guess the population now wouldn't have access to all their favorite Horde movies through their favorite streaming service, so I don't know. Now knowing that based on the show's logic, the problem will fix itself, it doesn't set a good dynamic for the people of this world and the hero themselves. Because if you put it into simple terms, essentially the hero has to save these people from something as basic as them not being smart enough to grow their own food. I don't know where the story's going, but if it's inevitable for plot reasons that there needs to be a food shortage for some reason, and that's a big plot point that goes on, some of the other things that the story could have done that actual government intervention has historically been more appropriate is if you have the concept of unused land. So historically what's happened, I'll just use the Romans, is what was happening is you had incredible wealth inequality, and because of so few people owning so much wealth and so much land, you ended up with a lot of waste and a lot of decisions like people growing cash crops when they could be growing food for poor people, but that wouldn't make as much money. So if it's a really important thing that food is a problem, and it's really important for the plot that the government intervenes, having a land reform issue would do a lot more for the story in general. After tricking many people into thinking that the show's competent, the hero reveals that he's going to hold a talent show based on, excuse my pronunciation, Xiao Xiao from the Three Kingdoms period. Now, I was actually pretty interested in this plotline because finding good talent is incredibly difficult and is incredibly valuable for a company. And Xiao Xiao, I don't know much about him, but I'm sure it had incredibly interesting and nuanced ways on how to find interesting talent. Something I really like doing is finding old books that are how-to books that were written a very long time ago, because it gives you incredible insight in how people problem solved. And a really good example of this is the book The Strategicon by Maurice, which is a pocket how to be a general book for the Roman army in I think this year 600 AD. And it has incredibly interesting things in there, like if you have a 40,000 man army, how do you discover if you have someone who's in your army that's not supposed to be there? So everyone in the army is supposed to have a tent. Many people share a tent. When you want to see if someone's in your army that's not supposed to be there, you ring a bell, and everyone has to go to their tent. If you see anyone that's in your tent that is not supposed to be there, you arrest them. If you see anyone who is not in a tent, you arrest them. And thus, you have a pretty elegant solution to this problem. Now, I thought the show, basing this on history, was going to provide a really interesting, nuanced solution for how to solve this problem, maybe using some of the methods that Xiao Xiao had to use to conquer this problem. So, what was he going to do? Was he going to use some medieval tactic of recruiting people? Was he just going to copy and paste Xiao Xiao's solution and look cool for plagiarism? Or was he going to use a modern aptitude test which didn't require reading in order to figure out someone's aptitude? And also what's interesting and a huge problem for finding talent is being able to trust the people that are recruiting the talent to be incredibly honest. Fortunately, many people are threatened by talented people because they think they're going to take their job. And a lot of companies run into that issue of people purposely not hiring talented people because those people are afraid they'll lose their job. So knowing that the story has already set up the people that are in his kingdom that hold powerful positions, are incompetent, we can assume that they feel threatened by all of this change. So what nuanced solution is he going to do? And the anime immediately disappointed me with the solution being, one, he's going to use a magical broadcast system in order to call all of the peasants to the capital and hold a talent show during a food shortage. Also, in what appears to be prime farming time. So, that seems like a bad idea to fill your capital with hungry peasants when you don't have food to feed them. Let's just move on to the next episode and see what happens. So episode 3 starts, and there is no answer to how he found or recruited these talented people. It starts off with the tsundere princess being very dere for the hardworking, diligent man that the hero is, and the show just explaining that 5 exceptional people have already been found and are in the throne room. Now, I'm actually really... Now, if the show actually took the time to explain the processes for how they found these people, I would be very okay with them being incredibly overpowered. Because if you're going to spend the time to sort through 3 million people and find the top 10 performers in each individual field, you're going to have people that are going to blow your mind, even in real life. However, because the show didn't explain how they came to find the top 5 respective people in their fields, I was honestly a little confused, and I thought I maybe missed an episode, because it went from, yeah, we're gonna have a talent show, to, just kidding, the talent show's already been done. The entire episode then proceeds to take place introducing 5 characters. Everyone is standing around or kneeling, and that is the rest of the episode. Which really, a lot of people say show don't tell, but I guess, you know what, this show is going to tell. Also, if they have a broadcast system, why don't they just broadcast to the farmers, hey, maybe don't grow cotton this year, grow food to feed yourself so you don't starve with your family. That could have been a pretty simple solution to the food crisis. So anyway, the first character is introduced, and she's an elf warrior that has a really cool hat and says, hey, my hat is my most defining feature. The hero says, here's some knowledge about your hat, and then the person's like, wow, I pledge my hat to you. The next person is introduced is an absolutely beautiful woman who is the best singer in the country, which I was actually pretty surprised that the anime went ahead and actually showed this person singing. So good on them for actually having a song when they could have just, skipped having a song. However, I am not a xenophobic person. Many people are. And when a foreign king is on the throne, broadcasting to the entire nation, and he has the best singer in the country sing a song to reinvigorate the people, and he chooses, instead of singing a song from the world, from the country, that's I don't know, maybe a national anthem or something. They have a broadcast system. They could definitely have a national anthem or a royal song or something. He decides he's going to have her sing a song in Japanese, which, I just don't understand how that would go over well. Maybe I'll get a lot of hate for that, but I don't know. Didn't make too much sense to me. The third person that is introduced is a man who can eat a lot, and boy howdy, does the show go out of the way to praise this guy for being able to eat a lot. Which, I mean, it's totally fine for, like, this is finally, like, the show doing what I've been wanting it to do. Introduce an element, and use it in a nuanced way, right? So this guy can eat a lot, and the show is making it very obvious that this is a very important skill to be used, and it's very obvious to a politically science-trained guy why someone who can eat a lot is important to a nation. And if this is how the show is going to, like, introduce its nuanced ideas, that is incredibly obnoxious. Moving on to the fourth person, he is a man that is introduced as the overpowered political science know-it man that would be completely justified had the show put in the effort into actually figuring out how to recruit this person. And then it states this guy is going to be the right-hand man from now on. Now, something the show hasn't addressed, and I haven't either, is the unfortunate thing about humans is that you can have the most talented person in the world, and they can be absolutely insufferable, and thus their talent is completely wasted. So, because there's been no proper screening process on how this person plays well with others, the fact that the show just declares he's now the right-hand man, even though he's a complete stranger, and he knows a lot, seems naive, but alright. At the end of the episode, the cat girl is introduced. I'm really confused as to how she made it to the capital, because for one, she's dressed like a peasant, and for two, I guess I'm just assuming that she's a serf. She could just be, like, not a serf, but how does a little girl travel by herself to the capital of a country? That doesn't make too much sense to me. Moving beyond that, she whispers what her power is, and then the episode ends. Now, to wrap up, the glaring issues that this show has is it introduces problems that are interesting problems. However, the show does not know how to solve any of the problems that it introduces, and so then just declares the problem has been solved through hard work and diligence, which I don't see as a problem that's going to go away in the show, because if they already had the understanding of how to solve these problems in interesting ways, they would have been foreshadowing how those problems are going to be solved. And the other problem is that the third episode is just incredibly boring, and I think breaks every rule of how to tell a story. You have 5 characters who are introduced that stand around, tell their motivations, change their motivations on a dime, and then are declared, "You're amazing." If you disagree with my opinion, go ahead, leave a comment. Declare all the true things about me, why my opinion is bad, why I don't matter, why I am just one of 8 billion people on this planet, and if I disappeared tomorrow, nobody would notice. For that, I'll wrap the video up. Like that smash button, and I'll see you next time when I'm going to review, funnily enough, says it's an anime that's very simple, but then actually does all the things that this anime says it was going to do. So that's it for me. See you next time.